All over the world, of course, innovators are concentrating on futures. I speak about futures because futures are opened up by thinking about the future, and it's not a single future that we are concentrating on, but as we are opening up futures, we are designing futures, and that's the essential characteristic of future studies. Now, a couple of decades ago, people were concentrating on forecasting as the main shape of future studies. But recently we have discovered that forecasting in the real world is only a very exceptional case. Why is that? Because the world is populated by what I call social systems, all kinds of arrangements in which people are cooperating, competing, struggling, having conflicts and solutions. And the nature of these social systems is specific and different from the nature of technological systems. People are able to learn from anything, from experience, from books, from life. And as they learn, they change behavior. That's essential. They are able to change behavior as a consequence of learning. The way in which they change behavior is due to their own free will. And because of that, from the outside, it is impossible in principle to forecast future behavior of social systems. It's important to realize that, because we are all educated in a world of causalities. Causal relationships is the essential part of what we call scientific knowledge. And causal relationships can be constructed afterwards in real life. By observing behavior of social systems, we can come up with explanations why they have changed in such a manner. But looking forward, it's quite different. Because all knowledge that is available to us as observers of social systems is also, in principle, available to the social systems themselves. So they change underway. And for instance, if we are designing policies and we use research results, we say, well, the probability that people will use hard drugs is diminishing as they are members of all kinds of sports clubs. So that might be a reason to subsidize sports clubs. But realizing that also the drug dealers are reflexive, we might, before recommending subsidies to sports clubs, we might try to observe whether the drug dealers are nested nowadays in the governing boards of sports clubs. That's a different way of thinking about futures. We are not forecasting, we are not trying to gain solid knowledge about futures, but as we realize the complexity of social systems that is caused by reflexivity, we have to change our attitudes and try to get involved in the change of social systems. So external interventions might be far less successful than what I call intraventions, and shapes of participatory democracy, but also of transdisciplinary research are examples of those interventions. Well, that's as far as as social systems are concerned. But our real world is consisting of mixed shapes of technological and social systems. Technology is everywhere and there is no opt-out option available. We cannot live any longer without technology. So we have to move into a world in which technological and social systems are intertwined, and while technological change might be given shape in causal relationships, we are sure that social change cannot be given shape in causal relationships beforehand because of reflexivity. So we have realized two important conclusions. Forecasting is an exceptional case in the real world, and our knowledge about social systems keeps no longer than fish, as Ashby explained already in the 60s. Because of reflexivity, the change of social systems is caused by the knowledge that is published. And as a consequence, that knowledge might not be any longer valid. Even that is uncertain. So, we have spoken now about future studies and about the real world of a very intense complexity. And people have to act and to innovate in that world. And one of the main subjects, domains of change is sustainable development. And I have accepted the definition that is concentrating about the multi-dimensional character of sustainable development. That we are not only speaking about ecology, but also about economy and social change. And as a consequence, social change that is directed towards sustainable development will have to keep in mind that the ecological, economic and social aspects have to be considered. Now, if you look at studies in sustainable development, you might discover that there is often a kind of reductionism present, that people in the beginning accept that 3P, people, planet, profit definition of sustainable development, but afterwards they reduce their arguments towards economic arguments or ecological arguments. And as they do so, they lose relevance. They might get better connected to disciplinary knowledge in economics or in ecological sciences, but they lose relevance because the real perspective of sustainable development is multidimensional. And it's very difficult to be consistent in that manner and not formulate any conclusions in one dimension only. So, in order to get a better connection with politics, that of course is related to the real world, you might hope so anyway, we have to realize that the conclusions of scientific discoveries should be formulated in a multidimensional shape. And people concentrating on social innovation should realize that they should keep in mind that not only the way of cooperating or the arrangements of steering are important, but that also the economic and ecological consequences have to be kept in mind. That's the very essential and important assignment of social innovation that is directed towards sustainable development. Hoeveel?